Should we start the show, Dan?
I think it's time.
Or end it? Welcome to the mop-up for May 9th, 2022. I'm David Feldman coming to you from an air shaft overlooking a parking garage somewhere in Manhattan where the temperature is 62 degrees and sunny. Protesters in Poland today doused the Russian ambassador with red paint. Sergei Andreev arrived at an event honoring Soviet soldiers who defeated the Nazis. Russia's ambassador was splattered with red paint to protest Putin's invasion of Ukraine, or perhaps the Russian ambassador's unibrow was so thick, PETA mistook it for a mink stole. Monday marks the show hasn't started yet. Monday marks the anniversary of the Soviet Union's defeat of Nazi Germany back in 1945. Vladimir Putin marked the occasion by commissioning 130,000 World War II reenactors to play the part of the Nazis by invading Ukraine. In a 10-minute speech on Moscow's Red Square, Vladimir Putin said, once again, Nazis are being defeated, this time in Ukraine. That's what he said. And that marks the first time Putin has admitted that his soldiers in Ukraine are losing. You see, because it's the Russians who are overrun by Nazis, the Wagner Group. Read about it. Vladimir Putin made the speech before a parade of 11,000 soldiers and 131 armored vehicles. The parade was considered a success since only 50 tanks got stuck in the mud and only 3 Russian generals were assassinated. All right, that's good. I like that one. The show started. The Russians seem to be losing. They have given up on seizing Ukraine's capital, Kiev. The Ukrainian people are not collaborating with Russian soldiers as Putin had been promised. And as Putin now focuses on assisting Russian-speaking separatists in the Donbas region of Ukraine, the Kremlin can only boast modest gains, which the next day are put into the minus column, and it starts all over again. This is a mess, and I'm not the only one who has questioned whether or not Biden is making the right decisions. Even Thomas Friedman in the New York Times over the weekend worried that Biden was letting this thing spiral out of control. So if Thomas Friedman agrees with me, you know I'm wrong. That is some good coffee. Professor Juan Cole, who's always right, over at Informed Comment, writes that if the Supreme Court, we're going to talk about abortion, he writes that if the Supreme Court does go ahead and overturn Roe v. Wade, the Christian right will have succeeded in making it harder to get an abortion in America than in most majority Muslim nations around the world. A majority Muslim nation means it's primarily Muslim and their government is run by Muslims. The right in America has justified launching war against Muslim nations and banning Muslims from entering this country because Muslim teachings are too oppressive when it comes to women. If you turn on Tucker Carlson, he'll fret over the spread of Sharia law coming into America, turning women into second-class citizens. But it is the evangelical right, it is the right-wing religious nuts, especially on the Supreme Court, who are turning women into second-class citizens. I'm not pro-choice. I am pro-abortion. I'm pro-abortion. Professor Cole writes that as far back as medieval times, Islamic leaders in Turkey and Asia permitted all abortion 3 months into a pregnancy. So stop flattering yourself, America. Our abortion laws are more restrictive than most Muslim-dominated countries. Women in Muslim countries should worry more about American law, specifically handed down by Christian evangelicals. They must worry about American law more than they must worry about Sharia law. Christian evangelicals working the Republican Party, feeding the Supreme Court with so-called pro-life justices, they are getting laws passed here in America that are more of a threat to women than the laws being passed by our Muslim neighbors. Professor Cole says that of 47 Muslim-controlled nations, only 18 have abortion laws that are pretty much identical to the laws passed in Texas. 18 out of 47 have abortion laws that are pretty much identical to the laws passed in Texas. And as we all know, Texas abortion laws are the template for all the other red states should Roe v. Wade be overturned, and it looks like it's about to be. Professor Cole writes that 43 states in America have imposed some sort of limit on abortion. There are, he says, if each state were a country, there are more Muslim nations than American states where it's easier to get an abortion. It's harder to get an abortion in America. 43 states make it harder to get an abortion here in America than most Muslim-controlled countries. Well, let's talk about rape. I'm anti-rape. Texas will not allow abortion in the case of incest and rape. Let me repeat that. Texas will not allow abortion in the case of incest and rape. I'm not sure there's any difference between rape and incest. So let's talk about rape. According to the Brennan Center, 80% of rapes in America go unreported to the police. And of those reports, something like 4% result in a conviction. Rape kits sit in evidence rooms. There is, according to Atlantic, the magazine, there is an epidemic of rape kits containing sperm, containing the DNA of an alleged assailant that sit in evidence rooms untested. Think about this. After a woman gets raped, a police officer sticks a swab inside of her to get the DNA, and then the rape kit is put away, never sent off to a lab. Why? Well, partly because it costs about $1,000 for each test. And most importantly, the police never want to prosecute rape. So the rape kits go untested. In Cleveland alone, there are said to be 7,000 rape kits fully loaded with DNA that remain untested. In Detroit, it is estimated that at least 13,000 rape kits loaded with DNA are sitting untested. According to Atlantic, there are at least 200,000 rape kits around America that should have been sent off to a lab, but just sit in the evidence room of a local police station. The victims who submit to the test, the women, are told that the police are investigating. And of course, a rape victim wants to move on. So she trusts the police. She trusts the rape kit to get tested. And she moves on, and so do the detectives, and nothing ever happens. That's why 80% of all rapes in America go unreported. There is an epidemic of rape and an epidemic of American police not using DNA evidence to catch the rapists. A central database over at the FBI of DNA samples reveals that serial rapists are much more common than previously thought. You see, Brett Kavanaugh doesn't just rape once or try to rape a woman once. Had the FBI during the confirmation hearings followed up on all the women who came forward to report Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh's attempts at rape, they would find that he has attempted several times to rape women. See, that's why rape kits are so important. If all the rape kits were tested, law enforcement would be able to catch these serial rapists. It would be less of a he said, she said when a woman who claims to have been raped has the same exact DNA inside of her as another woman across state lines who also claims to have been raped. But that would require sending these rape kits off to the lab, and we rarely do. And in Texas, if you get pregnant from a rape, you must keep the baby because all life is precious unless that life belongs to a rape victim. You're raped. you're pregnant, and because you must keep that baby every single day of your life, you are reminded of what that man did to you, and you have to raise that reminder and breastfeed that reminder and take care of that reminder every day of your life. That person reminds you of the worst night of your life. It wasn't until last year that Texas finally got around to passing legislation that would fund sending rape kits off to be tested. Meanwhile, close to 7,000 rape kits in Texas still remain untested. Women in Texas are second-class citizens because of these abortion laws. They can't make love, they can't work, they can't educate themselves. They have no choice what to do with their bodies if they make the mistake of satisfying their animal urges while making love, or if they're raped. Now, this brings me to Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. He's the face of all these anti-abortion laws in Texas, which are serving as a template for all the anti-abortion laws that will spread throughout red state America if Roe v. Wade is overturned. So let's talk about Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who back in 1984 had just graduated from law school and was studying for the bar. And he decided to go for a jog in Western Houston. And while on his run, a tree snapped, a branch fell and snapped Greg Abbott's back. And since then, Greg Abbott has been in a wheelchair. Very sad story. What's even sadder is that now Governor Greg Abbott, a Republican, like a rape victim, has chosen to forget everything that happened on that terrible day. We try to forget horrible things that happened to us on that terrible day. Greg Abbott doesn't want to think about the day he was told he was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. When he was told he would never walk, he doesn't want to think about the day his body was ruined. And he has chosen to forget that. He's moved on. And by choosing to forget that day when he became a paraplegic, he has chosen to forget every single one of his fellow Texans who, like Greg Abbott, is confined to a wheelchair. That's who Governor Greg Abbott is. The Christopher and Dana Reeve Foundation, which advocates for the disabled, calls Governor Greg Abbott, and I quote, a disability advocate's worst nightmare. Greg Abbott, in a wheelchair, is called a disability advocate's worst nightmare. So here you have a politician, Greg Abbott, in a wheelchair. You would figure, well, I'm sorry this happened to him, but in many ways, can be a good thing. Finally, a disabled lawyer who passes the bar will advocate on behalf of the disabled. But not so. He's made it worse for the disabled. According to these new voting laws, it's harder for disabled people to vote now in Texas, thanks to the paraplegic governor of Texas, Republican Greg Abbott. Before Governor Greg Abbott became Attorney General of Texas, he spoke out against the American Disabilities Act. And once he became Attorney General of Texas, he routinely challenged lawsuits that were based on the Americans with Disabilities Act. He cited Texas's sovereign immunity from federal law, meaning the Americans with Disabilities Act could not be applied to Texas, even though it was passed and proposed by Texas' favorite son, George Herbert Walker Bush, which he calls one of the greatest moments of his presidency. So despite having to spend the rest of his life as a paraplegic, Greg Abbott, as Texas's Attorney General, decided to declare the Americans with Disabilities Act unconstitutional. As Attorney General, Greg Abbott supported tort reform. He supported putting caps on how much someone can collect in civil damages because he hates trial lawyers. But not his trial lawyer. After that tree snapped his back, Greg Abbott sued, and he reached an agreement where the homeowner who had the tree on his property, as well as the tree inspector who said the tree wasn't going to break, he settled in court with the two of them, and they must pay him upwards of $15,000 a month for the rest of his life, all of that tax-free. Plus, he gets a 4% bump on that monthly stipend each year. So that's about $15,000 a month. And there are several lump sums coming his way every couple of years, each one amounting to anywhere between $300,000 to $500,000. All told, Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott has collected close to $6 million from that settlement, and it keeps on coming in. That money will keep on coming in for the rest of his life. And you know who got Governor Greg Abbott that settlement? Trial lawyers, tort law, which Greg Abbott wants for himself, but not for the people who elected him, not for the people he represents. Now, I feel a bit uncomfortable politicizing the fact that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, is a paraplegic. It makes me uncomfortable, but he is a Republican. I used to feel bad about bringing up his predecessor, Rick Perry, especially bringing up the rumors about his homosexuality. But Rick Perry is a Republican. You see, Republicans, especially the ones from Texas, have a double standard. What applies to me doesn't apply to you. Like George W. Bush and his dad, they were all in on the Vietnam War. But George W. Bush didn't want to serve because he didn't want to get killed. He wanted you to get killed. So George W. Bush's dad down in Texas pulled strings and got George W. in the Champaign unit of the Texas Air National Guard. He was supposed to serve in the Alabama National Guard, but he lost interest and was AWOL, literally AWOL. But he still supported the war in Vietnam, as did his father. George W. Bush was reported AWOL from the Alabama National Guard, which is a crime. But if you're the CIA director's son, your dad pretty much knows how to cover up missing people. While Vice President Bush and President Reagan were fighting a war on drugs, George W. was snorting them while his father was bringing them into the ghetto to finance the Contras. Never been disproven. The Bush family for decades gave to Planned Parenthood until abortion became a political football in the early 80s. And then the Bush family decided, you know what? We can afford an abortion. We know how to get an abortion. Better poor women shouldn't be able to get one. Who cares about poor women? They don't vote Republican. Well, back to the paraplegic governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, who has passed some of the most stringent anti-abortion laws in the world, stricter than what you see in Muslim nations. Only 18 Muslim nations out of 47 Muslim majority nations have abortion laws as strict as Texas. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, I'm sorry he's a paraplegic, but there's something obscene about a man telling a woman what she can do with her body when he himself can't tell his own body what to do. It's obscene, and it explains what the anti-abortion movement is all about. It's no coincidence that the strictest abortion laws are coming from a Republican man in a wheelchair. Democrats in wheelchairs, I like to think, are a little different. You know, FDR, who realized, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who realized that some people are luckier than others. And it is the role of government, first and foremost, to provide for those who are unlucky. People in wheelchairs are in wheelchairs because of bad luck. It's bad luck. One day you're studying for the bar, you take a break, go for a jog, a tree branch falls on your back, and you spend the rest of your life as a paraplegic in a wheelchair, just like Greg Abbott. But a Republican like Greg Abbott goes into denial. Screw people with disabilities. I'm not disabled. It never happened. That's how the unhealthy Republican mind thinks. Total denial. Here's how a healthy mind thinks. I'm in a wheelchair. I'm a lawyer. Hey, I can help the unlucky. But Greg Abbott decided, I'm a Republican. I'm in denial. Move on. To be the same person he was before the accident. That's what he decided to be. And he turned his back on his fellow unlucky Texans. He turned his back on his fellow unlucky Texans. He turned his back on other people in wheelchairs because it reminded him of partly who he is. He became a sycophant of the lucky, doing their bidding, speaking up for the lucky so they would accept him. Greg Abbott, it is not Christian to turn your back on the unlucky. It is not Christian to identify with the lucky and serve as their errand boy. Most importantly, Greg Abbott, that is not what a real man does. Therefore, Greg Abbott, you are not a real man by any definition of manhood. By any definition of manhood, Greg Abbott, there's the right definition of manhood and the wrong definition of what a man is. By any definition, you, Greg Abbott, are not a man. Men do not pick on the weak. They don't turn their back on the disabled. Men help the weak. I suspect Abbott wasn't a real man before he became a paraplegic. And I suspect he became even less of a man after he became a paraplegic. He clings to the wrong definition of what constitutes a man. There's a type of Texan who fetishes manhood as being something synonymous with self-sufficiency, with being strong, not getting kicked around and fighting back. That's the kind of Texan Greg Abbott wants to be. That's the kind of man Greg Abbott fancies himself. There's a type of Texan who believe that Texas is more than a sovereign state because it's made up of rugged individuals who don't need anyone's help. We don't need the Americans with Disability Act. We're strong. We're self-sufficient. Just give me my gun and my religion, and I'll take care of the rest. That's who Greg Abbott is. That's how he defines incorrectly what manhood is. His definition of manhood is toxic and it's wrong, but that's how he defines it. Now he's a paraplegic. That's problematic to fancy yourself a rugged individual confined to a wheelchair. Now, where I come from, someone in a wheelchair is no different from anyone else and should be given equity so that they continue to be no different from anybody else. But not Greg Abbott. He doesn't believe in the Americans with Disability Act, even though, as I said, it was the Republican president, Texas' favorite son, George Herbert Walker Bush, who passed it. He called it his crowning achievement. But Greg Abbott is more of a man than George Herbert Walker Bush. A lot of people thought George Herbert Walker Bush was a wimp. Greg Abbott, he's not a wimp. He's a right-winger. It's self-sufficiency. He hates the government. But the problem, Greg Abbott, is you hate the government. You think everybody should be self-sufficient, but you're a paraplegic in a wheelchair. You need the government. You need the government to make sure there are ramps, special elevators. You need the government to make sure that you can check into a hotel that has a room that is wheelchair accessible. You need airplanes that have aisles that can accommodate your chair. You need a government to make sure that restaurants can accommodate you. And most importantly, you need a federal government to make sure that no matter where you travel in America, there are bathrooms for you that provide not just access, but dignity. Greg Abbott, you're a paraplegic, and it is the ADA that provides people like you with not just access to bathrooms, but dignity. Dignity. But Greg Abbott doesn't think that way. He should spend less time worrying about which gender is using a bathroom and more time worrying about being able to use one himself. I think that's a bigger problem for him. So, as a Christian, Greg Abbott, you could say Jesus put you in that wheelchair for a reason, to use your God-given talent as a lawyer to spend every waking day fighting for the unlucky. You had just graduated from law school. You were studying for the bar when you became a paraplegic. Jesus had plans for you. You're a bad Christian. You're not looking at what Jesus is telling you. Instead, Governor Greg Abbott, you turned your back on Jesus. Instead, you sidled up to the money changers. You turned your back on the meek and instead became an errand boy for the Texans who inherit the earth and then drill it. You're not a Christian, Greg Abbott. And you're not a man by any definition, by the wrong definition of a man, by the way you define manhood, you're not a man. And by the way healthy men define manhood, you're not a man. Greg Abbott is not a man by any definition of manhood. By his definition or my definition, Greg Abbott is not a man. And yet he spends a lot of time trying to pass laws telling us who is and isn't a man. It must be tough, Greg Abbott, wanting to be a man the way you define it, but knowing deep down inside you're anything but. Therefore, you're not a Christian, you're not by any definition a man, and you are mentally ill. You are mentally ill, Greg Abbott, and being a paraplegic only makes your mental illness even worse. Your definition of manhood is diseased. It's especially diseased because you are physically and spiritually incapable of being the man you think you ought to be. It's sick to want to be the man you think you ought to be. And then you get even sicker when you realize you can't be the man you think you ought to be. And what do? Because you're mentally ill, you suck up to the bullies. You try to make the people who would consider you a loser, you try to make the people who would make fun of you for being in a wheelchair behind your back, you try to make them like you. You try to make the bullies like you. Greg Abbott, instead of seeing the bullies as the source of so much of your emotional pain, you try to relieve that emotional pain by courting the people who inflict that emotional pain. Greg Abbott believes that he can relieve his emotional pain by getting the bullies to like him, even though deep down inside he knows the bullies are bullies and they should be punched. Because we all know, if you believe what Greg Abbott believes, the only thing you can do to a bully is stand up to a bully, but Greg Abbott can't stand up. So eats at him every day. And the only way he can feel better about himself is to join the bullies in lashing out at the unlucky. Turn your back, Greg Abbott, on the unlucky who are just as unlucky as you, and serve Mammon and the bullies who pick on people like you. Because so much of this is wrapped up in Greg Abbott's toxic definition of what it means to be a man, he has no choice, because he's mentally ill, to lash out at women. He hates women. He hates women because he has an ideal of what a woman should be attracted to, and it's not Greg Abbott. The women Greg Abbott wants, the women that Greg Abbott wants are women who would look at a guy in a wheelchair and see someone who is weak, because that's who he is. And so he hates women. He wants to control women. He hates the idea that women right now are having sex with the type of men he considers strong. And if these women get raped, well, Greg Abbott, deep down inside, figures they deserved it. That's the mind of a right-wing anti-abortion crusader. It's not just Greg Abbott. It's the mind of every right-wing anti-abortion crusader. They think women have something I want. They won't give it to me unless, of course, I rape them. So they won't give it to me if they get pregnant, giving their body over to a man other than me. They should have to keep the baby as punishment, even if it's rape. I know this is true. Most men don't like to talk about this. I will. I have never sexually harassed or sexually assaulted a woman. But I have been frustrated by women. I have been sexually frustrated by women. I have gone out with women wanting to have some kind of sex with them and been told, I only like you as an object of ridicule. That's what women have told me. I don't want to have sex with you. I just like you as someone who I can, my computer is frozen. What's going on here? Hang on. Oh, come on, you motherfucker. Well, we'll have to do it this way. I would be lying if I said I was happy that a woman rejected me. I would be lying if I didn't feel frustrated. I would be lying if I didn't feel a tiny bit resentful and thinking maybe, just maybe, she'll go out with some other guy and then come to her senses and realize how great I am. So yeah, I kind of wish bad for the women who wouldn't sleep with me. I wanted them to have a bad experience with some other guy so they'd come crawling back, and I'd answer the door with a beautiful woman on my arm and get to say, you had your chance. Come on in. You want a threesome? Am I happy about that? No. I wish I could say, when a woman rejected me, I wish I was capable of saying, you know what? If you feel unattracted to me, then that makes me unattracted to you. The fact that you're unattracted to me does not make me more attracted to you. I'm so emotionally centered. I don't want to have any attraction for a woman who isn't attracted to me. I hope you find a man who can find your clitoris and you both live happily ever after. I wish I could say that. I wish I could believe that. I know I'm supposed to think that, so I behave like I think that, that's what healthy men are trained to do. You behave like you're thinking properly, and then eventually, hopefully, you stop behaving and you actually start behaving and thinking the same way. But then there are men inside the Republican Party who seek to codify into law revenge on all the women who won't sleep with them, all the women they can't get it up for. And that is why the Republican Party is a party of rapists. It is the party that hates women. And you can't separate hatred for women from being anti-abortion. Anti-abortion means anti-women. Republicans hate women. They don't believe in equal pay. They don't believe in paid maternity or even paid paternity leave. They don't want contraception covered by Obamacare. They believe that women should be subservient to men, that a woman's job is to make babies and stay at home and support the husband. And if the husband leaves her, well, the woman did something wrong. And if the husband dies and the woman is left alone with a couple of kids, Republicans cite that famous line in the New Testament where Jesus says to the lepers, "Sucks to be you, go away, you sicken me." I'm pretty sure that's what Jesus said to the lepers. Andrew Wilhoit is a Republican who lives in Indiana. When his wife got breast cancer, he did what Newt Gingrich did when his first wife got cancer. He began having an affair with another woman. When his cancer-stricken wife found out about the affair, she decided to sue him for divorce. That's what happened to Andrew Wilhoit. His wife found out about the affair and she sued him for divorce. That's the difference between Andrew Wilhoit and Newt Gingrich. When Newt Gingrich found out his wife had cancer, he not only had an affair, but he also served her with divorce papers while she was in the hospital. Go look that one up about Newt Gingrich. Well, Andrew Wilhoit didn't like being served with divorce papers from his cancer-stricken wife. All he did was cheat on her. And he was humiliated when she served him with divorce papers. So he allegedly struck her in the head with a concrete gallon-sized flower pot, threw her lifeless corpse into his car, and then dumped his ex-wife's body in the river, so say the Indiana State Police. Andrew Wilhoit is now in prison, and he's facing charges of first-degree murder, which, because it's Indiana, carries with it the death penalty. His defense, according to prosecutors, is, yeah, I killed her, but she hit me first. It was an act of self-defense. My wife, who had just wrapped up a final round of chemotherapy that day, hit me. That's got to hurt. I mean, nobody packs a punch like a woman coming home from chemotherapy. So to defend myself, I cracked her skull open with a concrete flower pot, and out of self-defense, I dumped her body in the river because, I heard that if she comes back to life, she won't be able to attack me no more since zombies can't swim. Just throw the zombie in the river, zombies can't swim. Anyway, Wilhoit's trial is this August, and that doesn't fit too well into his schedule because Election Day is in November. And last week, from prison, he won the Republican primary for one of the open seats on Indiana's Clinton Township Board. He got the nomination, and he's running for Indiana's Clinton Township Board in November as a Republican, running for office from prison, a regular Eugene V. Debs. In Missouri, the former governor of the state, Republican Eric Greitens, is running for senator, Republican. 2 months ago, his wife, in a sworn deposition, said that then Republican Governor Greitens repeatedly assaulted her and their 3-year-old son. He's a huge Trump supporter. He also allegedly had an affair with his former hairdresser. That's what he calls her, his hairdresser. Not a barber? Hairdresser? Okay. While he was governor. Seems kind of strange for a Republican to call the person who cuts his hair a hairdresser, not a barber. Anyway, he was having an affair with his hairdresser. Apparently, or allegedly, she visited the governor's mansion and he decided to tie her up, blindfold her. He sexually assaulted her, then took photos of her tied up and threatened to put the pictures on the internet if she went public with the affair. He was forced to resign as the governor of Missouri, as the Republican governor of Missouri. Trump supports him. He also supports Herschel Walker in his run for the Senate in Georgia. Herschel Walker has admitted to attacking his ex-wife, choking her in bed, and threatening to kill her. He has been accused of violently stalking a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader and threatening to kill another ex-girlfriend. Herschel Walker admits to choking his wife in bed and threatening to kill her, but he says he didn't violently stalk a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. He's running for Senate in Georgia, and he's got the full-throated support of Donald Trump. Then there's Max Miller. He had a good week. He's supported by Donald Trump. Max Miller worked closely inside the Donald Trump White House. And last Tuesday, he won the Republican primary for Ohio's 7th congressional district. Former White House press secretary Stephanie Grisham said she dated Max Miller while the two of them worked in the Trump White House. And then, while she was promoting her new book late last year, she said Max Miller physically assaulted her after he accused her of cheating on him. She said he had repeatedly assaulted her physically throughout their relationship. Politico last year investigated Max Miller, and after interviewing 60 people and looking at court records, Politico said Max Miller has a storied history of drunk driving and physical assault, and he is now the Republican candidate for Ohio's 7th congressional district. Last year, Donald Trump endorsed Sean Parnell for Senate in Pennsylvania. But in late November of last year, Parnell was forced to drop out after a judge ruled his ex-wife should gain custody of their 3 children after Parnell was accused of spousal and child abuse. Parnell's ex-wife accused him of repeatedly choking her and hitting the children so hard he often left welts on their bodies. After Parnell dropped out, Trump threw his support behind Dr. Oz. Trump now wants Dr. Oz to be the senator from Pennsylvania. Then there's the race for governor of Nebraska, where Donald Trump has thrown his considerable weight behind Charles Herbster, who has been accused by 8 separate women of sexual assault. One of those women is a state senator, a Republican, who accuses Herbster of putting his hand all the way up her skirt at a GOP fundraiser. I thought running your hand up a woman's skirt at a GOP fundraiser is considered good manners. Maybe not. All 8 accusations of assault against Charles Herbster, all 8 accusations of assault have been corroborated by those who saw it take place, which means Republicans or friends of the women who told them about the assault immediately afterwards. But Herbster claims he's innocent and is running a series of ads throughout Nebraska claiming he's a victim of the same exact conspiracy launched against Supreme Court Justices Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas. If you'll remember, the FBI never investigated those last-minute sexual assault allegations against rapist Brett Kavanaugh. And as for Clarence Thomas, several witnesses came forward to corroborate Anita Hill's accusations, but then chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Joe Biden, didn't think it would be appropriate to hear from the women who could corroborate Anita Hill. Well, Herbster, despite 8 women claiming to have been sexually assaulted by him, he is still running for governor of Nebraska. The Republican primary is tomorrow. It's this Tuesday. And over the weekend, Donald Trump held a rally for him in Nebraska. Donald Trump supports Herbster. As of 2020, at least 30 women have come forward claiming they were sexually assaulted by Donald Trump. And that is the same Donald Trump who picked 3 of the 5 Supreme Court justices who reportedly have just voted to overturn Roe v. Wade. Not a coincidence. Makes perfect sense. If you hate women, then you're a Republican. If you hate women, you're opposed to abortion. Now, look, I'm not a fan of Hillary Clinton's, but we were warned back in 2016. Roe v. Wade was on the ballot. The Clintons knew exactly what they were up against, not just a vast right-wing conspiracy, a vast right-wing Christian conspiracy, the Federalist Society, Ken Starr, the Grand Inquisitor, who was all about Christian morals. His mistress wrote last year that the Grand Inquisitor, the great Christian Ken Starr, when they were working on the impeachment, Brett Kavanaugh was working for Ken Starr. Brett Starr's the quarterback. And Brett Kavanaugh and Ken Starr's mistress were working together, and Brett Kavanaugh had a temper tantrum, got in this woman's face, threatened to do physical harm, and she reported him. She reported Brett Kavanaugh to Ken Starr, and Ken Starr said, this is what she said. Ken Starr said, "I'm apologizing for him. Do not make trouble. I have big plans. We have big plans for Brett Kavanaugh." Ken Starr knows who Brett Kavanaugh is. Ken Starr hates women, and Hillary knew that. The Clintons knew that. And we were warned back in 2016 what we were up against. Roe v. Wade was on the ballot. Again, I have many quarrels with the Democratic leadership. They had an opportunity many times to codify abortion into law, and they didn't. But you can be certain that had Hillary won, all these abortion laws in states like Mississippi, Oklahoma, and Texas would be overturned. It would be easier, not impossible, to get an abortion here in America. Now, Henry Cuellar is running for re-election in Texas. He's pro-life and a Democrat, and he has been endorsed by Pelosi and the Democratic leadership. But he is the only pro-life Democrat in the House of Representatives. 5 years ago, there were 3 pro-life Democrats serving in the House. Ben McAdams served 1 term from Utah. Congressman Colin Peterson, Minnesota, and Dan Lipinski from Illinois, and they all got voted out in 2020. All that's left is Cuellar. It's just Cuellar. So it's not like there's one asshole, pro-life asshole, in the House who's a Democrat. Anyway, Charles Herbster is running for governor of Nebraska. 8 women accuse him of sexual assault. We'll find out if he wins this Tuesday. He also made his fortune in bull semen. And one of the people stumping for him is a man who made his money in bullshit, Stephen Moore. Stephen Moore, a former Trump advisor, joined Herbster this past weekend, stumping across Nebraska. Stephen Moore founded Club for Growth, which supports eliminating the estate tax, lowering taxes, reforming Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security by privatizing all three. He loves tort reform and school choice. He also opposes any legislation to fight climate change. When he was running Club for Growth, it gave hundreds of thousands of dollars to candidates illegally. And Club for Growth ended up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in fines to the FEC for failing to register as a super PAC. So Stephen Moore was voted out of the Club for Growth. But that didn't stop him from finding work at the Heritage Foundation, the Wall Street Journal, Herman Cain's presidential campaign, Fox News, and even worse, he served as CNN's chief economic analyst up until 2019. Stephen Moore calls himself an economist, but all he has is a master's in economics. But that's enough to rise within the Republican Party so long as you parrot talking points that favor cutting taxes for the rich, because that's who funds Stephen Moore billionaires. The Club for Growth, which he founded, gets all its money from billionaires who donate as much as $1.5 million a year each. One of them is Peter Thiel, right-wing founder of PayPal, who financed a multi-million-dollar lawsuit that bankrupted Gawker. Thiel was mad at Gawker for reporting that Thiel was a closeted homosexual. So Republican Thiel reportedly bankrolled Hulk Hogan's defamation suit against Gawker, and they won. Thiel, like Governor Abbott, also supports tort reform, just not for himself. It's okay for him to support the lawsuit against Gawker. Well, the reason I mention Stephen Moore when I'm talking about abortion, the reason I mention Stephen Moore, who was on the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, who is constantly interviewed by mainstream media for his views on inflation, I mention Stephen Moore because Donald Trump wanted to name him as a governor of the Federal Reserve, but he had to withdraw his nomination because Stephen Moore has a past, involves women, and he wanted to keep it secret, but it came out. In 2012, Stephen Moore refused to pay his ex-wife $300,000 in alimony and child support, 3 kids. F them. They're not getting the money. He was held in contempt by a judge. He was ordered to make the payments. He refused. He ignored subpoenas. They were about to arrest him. And it was only until they were about to arrest him when Moore agreed to pay his alimony and child support. In 2018, the IRS accused Stephen Moore of filing a fraudulent tax return and placed a lien on his home. Stephen Moore's first wife, Allison Moore, claimed during the divorce that throughout the marriage, Moore inflicted emotional and psychological abuse. She said it got so bad she and her kids had to flee their home in the fall of 2009. That sounds like something worse than emotional abuse. According to the Washington Post, Stephen Moore signed a document admitting to being guilty of all the accusations made by his wife. Stephen Moore hates women. The Republican Party hates abortion because it hates women. It hates women on a very primal level. This is a party controlled by rapists, a party controlled by men who hate women because they are not the men they wish they were. This is a party controlled by stupid men like Louis Gohmert, who hate smart women because smart women remind them of every day just how unworthy they themselves are of respect. This is a party that doesn't want women in the workplace because these men have egos that can't tolerate a woman who's more efficient, more powerful, and even worse, wealthier. This is a party run by closeted homosexuals, men who are crippled on the outside or the inside, closeted homosexuals like Rick Perry, Lindsey Graham, and Madison Cawthorn, or Greg Abbott, and Madison Cawthorn, who hate the men they are, so they punish women for enjoying company with the men they wish they could be. As bad as the Democrats are, and they are horrible, they are not this bad. The Democrats are not afraid of smart and powerful women. The Democrats have Maxine Waters, AOC, Cori Bush, Elizabeth Warren, to name just a few. The Republicans have Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Susan Collins, the cretinous senator from Maine who took the rapist, Brett Kavanaugh, at his word when he promised he wouldn't overturn Roe v. Wade. America would be better off if this country were run only by Black women. I know that sounds wrong, but that's how I feel. You show me a Black woman who holds elective office, I'll show you a woman who knows how to fix this country. Condi Rice and Candace Owens don't count. They never ran for elected office. Why am I a Democrat? Because that's where the Black women are. Congresswoman Val Demings shouldn't be the next senator from Florida. Alan Grayson should be. But I still trust Val Demings over any Republican serving in the House, Senate, or Supreme Court. Now, most women know the GOP hates them, which is why Biden, this is up for debate, but I'm working off these numbers. In 2020, Biden got 57% of the female vote to Trump's 42%. That's a landslide. That's a 15% margin. This is why I think maybe the Democrats have a chance in November. But why would 42% of women vote for Donald Trump? Obviously, they are low information voters, and low information female voters are like Camille Cosby, who stood by Bill Cosby through it all. Camille Cosby knew Bill cheated on her. She knew Bill drugged these women. She knew he raped them. But like the women who voted for Trump, these women who vote for Trump, they know deep in their hearts that Trump is a rapist, just like Bill Cosby. Camille believed these women deserve to be raped. Camille, just like Hillary Clinton, who did the bimbo eruptions in the White House, Camille, like Hillary, believed if you're a woman spending time with my Bill, you deserve whatever happens to you. Camille Cosby, like all the women who voted for Trump, is glad these women get raped. You sleep with my man, you deserve it. You sleep around, you deserve it. Those are the women who vote for Trump. Those are the women who vote Republican. They hate women and they hate themselves for being women. That is who the Republicans are. They are run by people who hate themselves. Brett Kavanaugh is a drunk. He hates himself. Clarence Thomas married Ginny Thomas. Need I say any more about the level of self-loathing it takes to marry Ginny? Lindsey Graham hates that he's gay. Donald Trump hates himself. He's too smart not to. Greg Abbott is a paraplegic who hates himself. And instead of taking it out on themselves, they lash out at others. They lash out at the disabled, the LGBTQ, the poor, children, people of color, and as we know, women. The Republican Party is a party that hates women. They sexually harass, they assault, they rape women, and they try to deny them equal pay. They want to control women because they hate women. The Republican Party is a party run by men who can't live up to what they think a man should be, so they punish women. That's what self-hating men do. They punish women. And if you can't rape and assault all women, the least you can do is take control of their bodies by denying them the right to an abortion. You show me a man who can't get laid, I'll show you a Catholic priest speaking out against abortion. You show me a man who can't get it up, I'll show you a white Republican male speaking out against abortion. You show me a man who's comfortable with his body, his sexuality, his intelligence, I'll show you a man who says, abortion? I got enough problems. Ask a woman what she thinks.